right, welcome to another edition of Short Track Radio, a virtual edition of Short Track Radio. We're all on Zoom. Cody's joining us from his home office, and our guest today, Jason Day, is joining us in front of his sim racing setup. Jason, thanks for, I would say stopping by, but we're pulling up the Zoom.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Cody, do you want to give us maybe a tour or an explanation of what's going on in your background?
Yeah, some of we've just been talking about the video being pretty poor quality, but we have the Miller family racing foursome there with some non-wings and then the old timer. Got my late model there, which you can't really see because of the glare, and then this is the original top of the toolbox from stock car days that the box started to fall apart. So figured I had some cool old stickers on there, so we kept that. I added the newer updated 64, and I want to put some art on the wall, and my wife said, well, put it in your office because you're not putting it out in the living room, so it's there.
For it. Yeah.
And Jason, you got some cooler shit behind you there.
Yeah, I got a little bit of sim setup behind me. I don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of a makeshift thing made of wood, but triple screens, old wheel, old computer, needs an upgrade, but it works.
That's awesome. So you got 3 screens, and then I see you have a helmet there. I did notice there's a picture on Facebook where you got the helmet, the gloves, and everything. Do you actually race like that, or is that just for shits and giggles?
Just for fun. My kids told me to try it, so just for fun. So yeah, it gets too warm when you do it that way, and you don't have any actual air blowing by your face to cool you down.
Got to get a fan set up.
I actually had that at one time because it does get pretty warm in the summertime racing.
So yeah, and it's pretty tough to have the headphones on with the helmet.
Yeah, it is. You can't. It really mutes the engine sound for sure.
Nice. So I want to chit chat maybe a little bit about actual racing, and then get into some iRacing. I really wanted to do a deep dive in iRacing tonight, just because for one thing I'm just starting back into it again, so I want to pick your brain, and then there's a lot of guys jumping in on this right now, and there's a late model series and put on by the Keg and Shockwave, and so just kind of where you started from, enduros in 2015, and kind of move forward from there. So how'd you get into enduros?
Well, I started with Hornets.
Hornets. I keep saying
that's okay. That's okay.
Drinking.
Racing something I wanted to do my whole life. Huge fan of it. Grew up in Nova Scotia with a really good short track back there. And one of my favorite drivers, just watched him every weekend. Always wanted to race, never ever did it. Just played baseball and stuff like that, never tried it. And I got here one night, was at the Speedway, watched some Hornet races a few times, and a friend of mine, Curtis Boyce, he had 2 cars in the Hornet series, and his son couldn't race one night, so he asked me to drive the car. And I went out first night and won the race. It was my first race and won a trophy dash or whatever it was, and I was hooked. So the very next weekend, I bought my own race car, thanks to Dave and Jen at DG Auto. They found me a car, and finished. I raced a couple races, I think, for the end of that year, maybe only one, and then I had a full season the next season.
And that was in the Prelude?
That was a Prelude, yeah, and that was a pretty dominant car for a couple of years. It was a lot of fun.
Now you got kind of that. I think we talked over each other there. This is going to be the thing here, Cody.
You see this thing? You got the little square over you, so you take priority. You go for it, buddy.
All right. I was going to say that thing was a driving force. What you had kind of a chassis guru that you have in your camp there with Grant that's put the trick set up on that thing and is really helping with the mini stock you got right now.
Yeah, Grant's more of a power guy. He's a drag race kind of guy. Wants to be able to go fast and go faster all the time. And I keep telling him I want better shocks or better brakes. And so he's like, don't worry about that. You just need more power and keep going. You don't need brakes. So he pushes me pretty hard. But that Prelude was unreal. I don't know what it was, but we got the engine working really good, and it was just a dominant car. It handled so well. He could do anything I wanted to do on the track. And didn't have to worry about shifting. A lot of guys lose power because they think they need to shift every time they go into the corner in those Hornets and Claimers, and you just lose so much momentum. Like Western's momentum tracking, you have to really ride it through the corner and let the momentum take you and get a good run off. And if you slow down too much, you're done for that straightaway.
So the first full year was 2016. So you're pretty new into actual car racing at this point.
Yeah, for sure. big fan of it. And like I said, did iRacing for 20, or not iRacing, but actual sim racing for 20 years. But yeah, just a huge fan of NASCAR and all types of racing. So I've been around it a long time, just never ever did it.
Now, back in Nova Scotia, who were the guys that you watched? Was it Scotia Speed World? Was that the track that you went to?
Scotia Speed World and Riverside Speedway. Then there was Speedway 660. Another one. There's probably about 5 tracks within 2 hours of my house. So you could now most of those tracks are all open again, which is great for back there. And their late model series is one of the most popular in Atlantic Canada's guys all from Maine and New Hampshire and stuff that come up in that series. But Scott Fraser was my favorite driver growing up. He's a few years older than I was, and he ended up making it to ARCA. And after he signed a deal for ARCA, he was killed in a snowmobile accident the year that he signed the deal. And he was I think he was only pushing 30 years old at that time, and just under 30. And it was sad for him because he was probably the best late model driver in Nova Scotia at that time. He was amazing.
What's the main class of cars out there? Is it similar to what we hear for Western?
Late models, stock car. They have a truck series there, which it's basically like our Bomber series, but it's trucks. It's a stock crate motor, like S10s, Ranger, stuff like that. But it's more of a truck series kind of deal. But they don't have a lot of demo stuff. It's funny because here is, demo nights is a big seller, and real racing is not the big seller. But back there, the real racing is the big seller. You're hard to get pressed to get tickets some nights.
We have late models here. It's pretty much demos on most
some nights, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a real problem. So you go 2016.
We wouldn't know a late model car owner.
Oh, I think we're glitching. What's that?
I think Cody, I said you wouldn't know a late model car owner, would you?
Yeah. I have a couple cars for sale if anyone wants to buy them. Trying to sell them back to my dad, but he also owns half of them, so it's hard to sell them back to each other here. But it's actually getting pretty good. Some nights it doesn't seem like you can get 3 laps in, and it's how quick they are on the throttle. You blink for a second, and the guy doesn't get on it right away. You're into him, and then emotions get into it, and the way that they send the fast guys to the back when there's an incident, and there's something there that I think that needs to be fixed. Where if a guy goes to the back, it's just I don't know how we fix it, but they got to slow him up a little bit, like keep him in the inside lane or something. Mm-hmm. They move to the outside lane, and then they're back up to the 4th row, and then you end up having a problem right away again. So I don't know what the deal is to fix it, but yeah, they got to stop tearing them up.
A lot to do with patience too. I think a lot of guys get pushed to the back, and then they're so worried about getting to the front again that they push a little harder than they should.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a speed difference, obviously, between the
Sure.
front 8 to 10 to the back 8 to 10. So it, I've been there before where you get taken out and you get pissed off. You get up front, and then you end up taking someone else out by mistake because you're pissed off or something, and then it just keeps going. But so, with mini stocks, you guys seem to have more nights where it's clean racing. How'd you find that moving into that series and racing with guys like Alex Mooner, who seems to be just cleaning up?
Yeah, he's pretty dominant. He's one of the guys I watched for a long time. Alex and I have been friends for quite a long time. We worked together once, and we started talking about mini stocks before I started racing, a few years before that, and always watched him and always liked the way he drove. And but it was kind of a natural progression to go from Hornets. Our car was so dominant, it wasn't that I was that good, but our car was good, and I wanted more of a challenge going from the back to the front. I liked the back to the front thing, but I wanted to be able to do it and make it hard to do and fun and with some good drivers. And that mini stock group, or Outlaw 4 as they're called now, I guess. It's a good group of drivers. It's pretty clean. I mean, obviously we don't have the same car counts. Our car counts have been down a little bit, but still good, really good racing. And I've had my number 51 for 3 years now, and we haven't had to replace a body panel or do anything in it yet, which has been great because I'm not a big fan of body work. So it's a good thing.
So rookie of the year, your first year, and it was top 5 as well in points?
Yeah, I was 5th in points the rookie of the year, my first year. Didn't get any wins. We had a lot of bad luck where we ran up front or were even leading and we had things break. Cole would attest to that. He's seen me blow some drive shafts or rear ends down the front straightaway a few times. So
Yes, unfortunately, last year I think I was announcing quite a few times where the 51 car was spinning in turn one or turn three because of the rear end locked up on it.
Who's your rear end guy?
Yeah, that, and then we think we blew 3 rear ends the first season, and then we started having some motor issues because we had some old motors that we had that we didn't know what when we bought the car. We just didn't know how bad they were, and they were pretty old because we use fuel injected motor, and I think it came out of a Toyota Celica that had 300,000 kilometers on it. So you just don't know how good the motor is, and it ran well. But yeah, we had a couple motor issues and some bad luck, but we did have some good runs. There was a couple nights where we were running up front all night and we just had mechanical issues, but it happens to everybody.
Nice. Did you run full season last year as well?
I did, yeah. We finished third in points. We had 2 main event wins. We were leading another one. We kind of got taken out on the last lap as we were passing for the lead. That was a tough one. And then
Who took you out?
Me and Caleb Van Bree kind of got together on the last
fucking
lap.
Caleb.
Not his. It was kind of both deal, but yeah, he thought he was clear and he wasn't clear, and we hit and we both spun out, and unfortunately we didn't make it to we made it to the finish. We finished fourth. Caleb didn't. He had a rough year. He had a really rough year too, and so I had not a bad year. We just had some mechanical issues that hurt us, and then the last race night of the year wouldn't have made a difference in points, but we were fastest we'd been all in 3 seasons. We were the fastest. We ran our fastest laps of ever, and we got rained out that night.
The way. What was for this year? What were you looking to run mini stocks again, or were you? Yeah. Car all ready to go, or in pieces?
It's ready. It's got a new front clip on it. We changed over to a Monte Carlo stock car front end on the race on it this year, just to change the look a little bit and try to get some weight off the nose. So.
Oh, cool, nice. Do you do that fabrication yourself?
Yeah, kind of pick away at it and do some stuff. I'm not very good at it, not very pretty, but it gets around the track, so that's all that matters.
Yes, function over looks, definitely.
Sure, for sure.
Nice.
Same thing my wife tells me about me.
So let's transition into the iRacing stuff. You said you've been obviously racing on simulators for a while. Maybe take us back to the early days of sim racing before iRacing kind of came around.
Yeah, well, back in the day, there was a company named Papyrus, and they built the very first real racing sim. They made what was called GT or Grand Prix Legends. It was the first one. And it was really, really old F1, or not F1, but Grand Prix style cars. And then they progressed into a NASCAR game, which came out with Truck Series. At that time, it was Busch Series, I guess, and the Cup Series. And I think in 99, it wasn't online at that time. And then the 2000 series, they just started doing online. It wasn't hosted races like they have in iRacing now, where you can just jump on and race with anybody. You actually had to find a league to run in and do all those things. So it was pretty neat. We had 3 or 4 leagues in the Maritimes that we ran in, and had a couple of Truck Series championships, and really good group of guys. Had real sponsors, kind of like we have now. We had a big company in Nova Scotia that sponsored one of the series, and they'd pay for a big golf tournament every year and meet the guys. I think we had 30 guys in our league at one time. It was a lot of fun.
Did you have forums? How did you get a hold of people? How did you know?
Yeah, forums. And there was some hosted races, but they didn't have a whole rating system. So there's a few little hosted races here or there on the server, and then a kind of a AI. You could race the AI in that one, so you could race against computers. So a lot of guys did that before they most guys had dial-up internet and stuff. So it was really laggy, and sometimes guys would glitch out or end up 10 laps behind or 10 laps ahead just because your internet was so bad. But there was usually a forum, I don't know, I guess we're all about the same age, Cole, but the old forums and MSN Messenger and all those was how everybody kind of got a hold of each other. And then I made a lot of friends over the years through sim racing, for sure. I still friends that I'm still friends with a lot and still talk to, and I've done a lot. Used to do NASCAR trips with all the guys I raced with, and we'd go down to New Hampshire. Go down to New Hampshire every year, twice a year, to watch the real races and get together. It was a lot of fun.
So then fast forward into iRacing comes out, and a lot of guys jumped over to that. Sort of the other, you mentioned before that the actual initial program stopped or folded or something.
Yeah, the Papyrus company, they shut down, and a few of the developers from there, including and then got together with guys like Dale Earnhardt Jr., they were pretty heavy into the sim stuff at the time, and they kind of got together and developed iRacing as a kind of a beta thing for real teams to test, and they decided to make it go public. And I think it was a big reason for it is just to try to get recruiting drivers and getting setups, and a lot of engineers involved, and there was a way to make money and pay for actual testing on real race cars. So I think that was kind of how it started. And I never got into iRacing until 5 years ago. My computer broke, and I kind of waited 4 or 5 years to get back into buying a computer and everything, just because of kids and life and all that stuff. So I got into it 4 years ago, and I'm glad I got back in and got together with some of the guys I used to race with, and met a lot of new guys now, and it's been a lot of fun.
What kind of computer are you using? An actual gaming computer, or just like a standard laptop?
Just a standard computer. I'd like to get a really good gaming computer. I've done some upgrades over the years just to try to get it better, but I definitely, in terms of a new computer, I'm far behind compared to a lot of the guys that are running the sim for sure.
So you showed us a little bit before there, but just over your shoulder, you kind of have a setup there. Like, what would you recommend if someone's just getting started? Like, what's the basics that you need, and what's the nice to haves?
Well, you definitely need a good graphics card. Anything below 6 gig graphics card, I wouldn't recommend. Anything above that would be good. The game's getting more demanding all the time, or I should say sim. But it's since everybody's jumping on it, and there's, with this COVID thing, NASCAR is using it and all these things, so everybody's demanding more and more out of it all the time. So they're updating constantly and adding more graphics and more visuals to make it more realistic. So the demand on computer, everybody's fine. I find a lot of guys on the forums and stuff are finding they're needing to upgrade more often to keep the sim going. It's great that iRacing keeps it updated. You don't have to go and buy a new game every year, but it's the same. It's a paid membership, so you're still paying $100 every year to be able to play. But it's nice that they keep it upgraded. But yeah, you need a good computer. A good processor is the big thing, because it requires a lot of processing. But yeah, definitely gaming computer would be the way to go.
If you have a lower processor and graphics card's not as good, does it actually affect your driving on there, or is it just how it's actually interacting with the interface and how other people are seeing you?
Well, it's both of that. It doesn't really affect your driving, but if you have any lag in your screen or your frame rates or processing speed when you're moving on and off the track, it can affect your line, because you feel like you're entering the corner when you want, but the screen rate is actually changing a little bit. So it's visually, because you don't have any feel or actual feel like you would in a real race car, you require all visual in that. And if everything's not running smooth, you won't run smooth.
And what kind of steering wheel and games? So I got nice little Robbie Haslam. Pigpen gave me a nice little old school Momo version here.
That's actually a really good wheel. I started out.
Don't tell him that, because then I'll give him some money.
It's probably not a good wheel anymore, but it was actually the wheel I used when I started in 99, 2000. It's that same wheel that I used.
I found it was very important to collaborate, or how do you set it up? You got to get all the settings, whatever there's. I can't remember what the word's called, but I was off. So it said to go to 90 degrees, but I didn't realize my steering wheel went past that.
Yeah.
So the first race, we did that Western Speedway group there, and I couldn't figure out why I was going to the corner, and that thing wouldn't actually drive the way I wanted to. It's so realistic. But again, if you're off a little bit in 10 degrees in the steering wheel, they said that with lag time or something else, it makes it very difficult to drive. How realistic are these cars and the tracks you're going to?
Well, the tracks themselves are, according to the real drivers, I've never driven on any of those actual tracks, but according to guys that have, say they're as realistic as they can be. They're fully scanned by iRacing, so they use laser scanners and they run them over the track, and they get every bump and every little hole that's in it. So everything that way is as realistic as it can be. Wheel-wise, you can pay $250 for a wheel like I have, which is an old one, or you can pay up to like $6,000 or $7,000 for direct drive wheels that give you every bit of feel. Some guys have full motion simulators, which help a lot, because you get a little bit of feel of where the car's getting loose or tight. You can actually feel that a little bit, but it's such a visual thing. And I don't know if it really helps in the real world or not, but it definitely, learning to drive with people has been the big thing with iRacing, I think, or sim racing for me. this helped me in real racing is learning how to drive with people and be clean and not have to hit somebody to get by them, or to be able to learn to be patient and find a line to get around somebody.
Yeah, Cole had a good little experience in David Smith's sim racer there, and he was at Sonoma, and he did get a job there. It was actually get some speeds up, and it was interesting to watch because he had all the actual articulation in there.
Yeah. With David's setup too, it does have that motion and a little bit of motion. He's got the shifter like he does in the Trans Am car, and his pedals are custom made to have kind of the same feel as what's in the Trans Am car. But obviously, you don't need a crazy setup like that. I believe it was Timmy Hill, the guy that won the last invitational race, or the one before Bristol. He won Texas, but he did it with a Logitech wheel, the $500 one. So I guess that, Jason, that proves that you don't need all the crazy good stuff to be fast with it.
No, you don't. And Timmy actually uses the same wheel that I use, but his funny setup, he had a little office desk with a tiny little monitor and using the wheel, and just proves that he's raced a lot of laps in iRacing for one. And he knows how to be smooth, and he knows all the visual things. But he's a patient iRacer too. He knows how to sit back and save tires, and that's the big thing in iRacing, that they do a good job of simulating how tires wear out. And if you go into the corner, like Cody said, and your wheel's off, or you're pushing harder than it, a lot of guys will push really hard because they think it's a video game, that they think they can just drive it in the corner like you would on a console game and turn the wheel and it's automatically going to turn and go around. But if you do that at lap after lap, your tires aren't going to stay on it, and you'll fall off after 20, 25 laps.
Yeah, that was an interesting part of the Street Stock series. So there's different levels to start off with, and I'm in the lowest rookie category there. And there's a little Street Stock thing you go on, and thought I was doing so good, and then all of a sudden the tires go away, and I was like, geez, it's really realistic. You go in there and you can hold it in the lower groove, and then all of a sudden 15 laps later you're using your tires up, and so it was very, very realistic. So if you go back 5 years, you start off with, is it rookie level, and then how do you make your way up? Because there's a class A, B, C, D. Can you explain the different levels and how you kind of get into different ones, and also with that the safety rating and how that applies as you're moving through the ranks?
Yeah, so you start off as a rookie in all different classes. So there's an oval class, dirt oval class, road racing, and dirt road racing, which is like rally car and the what they're actually called. I can't remember now. It doesn't.
Short course off road.
What's that?
Short course off road trucks.
Yeah, stuff like that. The off road trucks and the rally cross type cars that are in it. So there's different. The iRacing only had one license class at one time, and then they brought out all these different off-road racing and stuff like that. And the iRacers kind of said we need different license classes because they were losing their ratings by racing on dirt and stuff and bumping into each other. Because the dirt racing they can make contact all the time. You're in a full drift all the time. So guys were not participating because they didn't want to lose their oval rating, good oval rating or that type of thing. So they made license classes for all the different types. So you could pursue one and get really good at that and not have it hurt another type of license that you have in it.
So how does that, because I was racing yesterday and some guy came on and he was getting mad at somebody because of the safety rating. So if you make contact with somebody, what happens? Is it like one contact, it kind of bumps you down, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so each time you make contact, depending on the severity of contact, you'll get what's an X thing. So it'll be a 2X or 4X or 8X, depending on how hard you hit somebody, or they can even hit you. That's the unfortunate part of iRacing, because they have no way to they don't have any track officials to actually watch official races. So iRacing just lays the blame on everybody. So you could drive on the track, smash into me, and I would get 100% of the blame, and you would get 100% of the blame.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
So when you start off in iRacing, you want to do really well and you want to race up front, but you can't advance if your safety rating isn't at a certain level. So you're smart to stay at the back for the first little while and kind of just ride it out and let guys crash and do those things and just kind of ride it out. Don't worry about getting good positions to get your safety rating up. And as safety rating goes up and your I rating based on finishes and how you do in those finishes, more so like passing points for, say, like if you go into a race, you're a rookie now. So if you went into a race, your car number would change to probably one of the last numbers in the race, right? Normally is that what happens? You end up into being a higher number.
Yeah.
So now I'm an A-class oval driver, and most of the time when I enter a race, I'm in the 1, 2, or 3 category.
Not a big deal, eh?
Yeah. Well, the only problem is I don't race officials enough so that I have the license that way. So if I jump in and I haven't practiced in a long time and I go into a race that I'm not that good at anymore, and let's say I finished 10th in that race, but I was ranked 1, 2, or 3, I lose a lot of my I rating because I didn't pass those guys that were supposed to be ranked below me, finished higher than me. So that's it.
What other benefits are there to have your rating up? Is just to move up different class, like different
move up different classes, and once you hit A, the next level above that is pro, but pro is really hard to get to. You'd have to commit 24/7 at it and be kind of part of the pro series type thing. So
who's staring at you?
Oh, just a couple dogs walked by.
So, okay, you get your setup, you get your wheel, you get description, and you're out there and you're trying not to run into people. A lot of the main or the street stock ones, they're all fixed setup. So you get on there and it's fixed. So the late model one that we're running, you can change absolutely everything on the car, more than you can change possibly at the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go to for setups? Are you downloading stuff, or are you just playing with them? How does where do you start and where do you progress?
Well, when I first started out, I started just with the iRacing defaults and would tweak from there and try to learn a little bit from it. The more I started racing, I started meeting some friends on iRacing and actually joined a couple teams at one time. So we started developing setups together a little bit when I had more time to race. I don't have as much with my son playing ball as much as he does now, but obviously with the COVID thing, I'm back into it right now. Yeah, got some setups from those guys who were really, really good and worked from there. There's a couple forums that you can get setups from, but the big thing I find is just laps. If you have any knowledge, the forums are really good. You can learn a lot from them, but a lot of guys will go out, run 1 or 2 laps, think the setup's junk, change everything in the setup, go out, run 2 more, realize it's not good, and spend a whole hour doing that, and they still don't have a good setup. Instead of running 50 laps on that one setup, getting everything they can get out of it, and then go in and make 1 change and go out and do 50 laps again and see what it's done, or even 20 laps. But I find most guys make too many changes and they just ruin everything.
Yeah, I think same thing happens at the actual track. Guys go out there just because they have 3 sets of shocks, they change everything. Yeah. I think my first 2 years of the stock car division, I think we changed like 1 spring, 1 shock at the track. We just left it the same.
Yeah. And I think that goes a long way. If you leave it the same, you learn to drive it that way, and you just get more laps in and you figure out where your car will work. On that track, whether you have to back off earlier or you can run it in deeper or whichever, but it always seems to come to you if you spend more time on it. And I think with the iRacing thing, it's the same thing. The more laps you log in, the better you get at it.
Simple changes that you make, or are you looking at more stagger? Is there a simple change you could recommend to the guys?
Yeah, crossweight's a big one. It's a huge difference on whether tight and loose. So changing crossweight a little bit makes a big difference. Just by spring perch heights in the late model. And then stagger and your rear spring changes a lot too. So if you're a little bit tight or a little bit of drive off, add a little bit of rear spring and you'll have a little more drive off, but it'll also create a loose condition when you go off the corner. So if you can find a good balance there, that's the thing. But stagger is a big one, and crossweight is the 2 main things that I usually change.
Nice. Now, go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Cody.
Oh, you're welcome.
So with this Western Speedway deal, maybe kind of explain how this has all come together. I know Dave Smith is helping out from Shockwave Seats, and we got kind of you guys have kind of a little fun league starting up with that. Yeah.
So David Smith and Jason Frost, they kind of got in and said, we'd like to help out and get a sponsor going for the series, keep things going, to keep people interested, keep people going with the series, help the speedway out a little bit, especially with the whole track for sale thing, and then the COVID and people missing racing. So we got together, and Brendan Moore, Rory Smith, Gary Smith, myself, a few other guys. We used to race together a few years ago in a little bit of a Sunday night league. It was just for fun, and so we all got together again and started talking about it. Got some rules together. Worked with friend of mine, Richard Orr, from down in Everett, Washington, who runs the Western Super Series that I race super late models in, and ARCA Series. and he helped us come up with a strategy on how we're going to have race formats on Sunday nights and how the races would go. And so we've got quite a few guys. I think we've got 20 or 25 guys interested now that have all raced at Western Speedway at one time, if not. And then we have a track official, Jake, who's racing with us now, and he's struggling, but he's learning and he's having a good time. And and there's Jason Tarasenko. I saw Brian Clucci logged on today. There's some good drivers from all different classes, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was the same guys are up top, like the fast guys, like Tarasenko, fast time. Gary Smith's been fast, goes back to the front, and it was pretty interesting being out there because it gets heated. Because one thing we haven't mentioned is the headset. So everyone has a headset. Everyone can talk to all different drivers. So it's funny because it's a fun series, but there's some. I'm sure there's some drinking going on, and there's some slurs, people screaming at each other for taking out and everything else. And it's been actually pretty fun. So speaking of different series, you mentioned tonight the ARCA race. It's a week off for you, but which series do you love running? What type of cars or trucks and things like that?
I think my favorite's the super late models and the Western Super Series on Tuesday nights, which is broadcast on Speed 51. It's probably the hardest series I've ever run in. It's fixed setups, so you can't change anything. And there's some young kids on there. They're real race car. Parker Retzlaff, who's an ARCA driver, real race ARCA driver, 17 years old. He is the fastest I've ever seen somebody in the super late. Him and a couple other guys, they just dominate. And it pushes me to try to get to those guys every night. You just got to be super smooth. But we probably have 40 guys show up every Tuesday for 20 spots. And it's disappointing some nights when you don't make it. The top 10 in qualifying automatically makes the show. And then from 10th through does heat races, and you got to finish in the top 3 in the first 2 heat races. And then the last chance qualifier finishes off the field, depending on how many spots they need. And it's pretty disappointing some nights when you don't make it. I normally don't qualify in the top 10. I think of once this year I've got the top 10, so I made the show. The rest I've had to race my way in. But some nights it's you get hit or you spin out or somebody hits you and your night's done after one heat race. And it can be frustrating, but it's one of the leagues that you really want to do well in. Good broadcast, good sponsors, great league to run in. It's a challenge, but it's frustrating some nights too, for sure.
Are people approaching you for sponsorships? How does that work for iRacing?
No. They have some pretty good sponsors in that league, because now, especially now with the whole COVID thing, that some sponsors that would get out on real race cars are trying to get on because they have broadcasts on Speed 51 or Fox or whatever. So they're still getting their TV time. I don't have any iRacing sponsors, but I usually like to help my sponsors out that I have on my real race car, and usually put them on my iRacing car too, just in case there's, we're on TV or something gets mentioned, or I post it on Facebook or Instagram. So just to help them out a little bit too.
That was the next thing I wanted to actually ask you about, was the design. I just saw on Facebook there you have a pretty wicked looking Dan Mann excavating. I'm not sure, did Steve Lingren's on that one as well, or? Yeah. So it looked, I'm not sure who designed that for you, but a pretty sharp looking car.
That was my friend Scott Austin in Illinois. He's a really good painter, real good iRacer too, but he's a great painter. I sent him a picture of my Dan Mann work truck and a couple other sponsors, and I said, come up with something. I want it to be clean and sharp and look fast, and that's what he gave me, and it was awesome. I wish I could afford to put a wrap on my real race car to make it look like that. Yeah,
it looked really good. Now, so when you do that template, so if someone wants to get some sponsors on the car and stuff like just even in the keg Shockwave series, how do we do that?
You can do it through Trading Paints. They have a Trading Paints Pro, which you can paint in that program itself, or you can do it through a paint program on your computer, like Paint Shop Pro, or there's another one. It's called GIMP, I think it's called. Or there's quite a few guys out there that, if you look on the forums, that they paint. It costs you a little bit of money sometimes. You pay them. I pay Scott to do mine because I like what he does, and he'll spend a full week working on it, and I don't mind paying for something that you spent time to do. It just depends on how much you want to pay or how much you're going to do. But I have a couple buddies that paint, and they make some pretty good money on the side painting for guys. So it's.
And what does a car go for?
Usually anywhere between, most of the guys I know are in the US that paint, but anywhere from $10 US up to $20. I've seen guys up to $25 US.
Okay, so that's very reasonable.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And so, with that, there's all these kind of side industries that, kind of branch off of iRacing that you wouldn't really know about, and that this whole COVID situation is kind of exposing that there are all these different avenues for racing online.
Yeah, for sure. And a good friend of mine is also in iRacing. They have Epic Media. They're a promoter for real race car drivers, but now their Epic Media is promoting a lot of iRacers now too, which there's some really good iRacers that have made it pro in real racing now too. So it's a whole different market for sure. And then, for example, sim gear like wheels, chassis, all that stuff. Guys are selling those like crazy. I know you saw the iRacing NASCAR race with Clint Boyer, him and Kyle Larson. The chassis that they have was developed by a guy, I think somewhere in Wisconsin, I think is where they make those chassis. They posted on their website the other day that they're only selling one setup now, and their demand is so outrageous now that they cannot keep up, and they're hoping to keep selling them, but they're just pushing them out like crazy. And that's a $6,000 US setup, and they've created tons of business just from that one NASCAR race on TV.
Which proves that racers, even given the opportunity to save money, will not save money.
Exactly.
Yeah, Bubba didn't have a good race there. He lost an actual sponsor because he like rage quit or something.
Yeah, Blue Emu ditched him.
Yeah, Clint Boyer was hilarious on that, and he said he got Bubba, and he walled him, and then Bubba quit, and Clint took him out on purpose after, and just because he's funny, he got away with it. But it was funny because the video was on Bubba, and he just flipped out, and Blue Emu quit sponsoring.
Yes, he went full me on NASCAR or on EA Sports NASCAR 2008.
Nice. Yes. Did you have a little incident on that? Did you?
No, it was just my childhood.
Fair enough.
I always had to win.
Nice. So
a lot of
coming up for iRacing for you, different series, different points.
We have our first official race with the Western Speedway Series, the CAG Shockwave Series, is Sunday night.
What? That wasn't an official one, the last one?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't official. Sorry. It's the first official one. Supposed to be Sunday. I think we've got all the rules hashed out now. I think Stephen Peckford's working on those with us and drawing them up, and I think we've got a good race format, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. We had a couple of really good practice races this week. Gary Smith and I battled it out 2 or 3 times this week and finished 1-2. And Rory Smith looked really, really fast. So did Caden, Brendan Moore, all those guys. So it's been a lot of fun.
I must have my phone off. I didn't get that invite.
The last race we had we were 2-3 wide, 3 deep, and raced really well. Still a few cautions, but it's getting better. And then I have my Western Super Series starts back up again on Tuesday. I missed it this week. I was late, had to work late, so unfortunately I missed it. And then ARCA starts back up again next week. So during this COVID thing, I actually get some time to race. When it's all said and done, my son hopefully will be back playing baseball, and I probably won't have time to iRace anymore besides maybe Sunday nights. But it's been fun again to get back into it for sure.
Actually, one thing I was going to bring up was in the race, some of the terminology and stuff. I think a couple guys from that Western Speedway Series could probably take some notes here on the wave arounds, the black flags, the pitting and stuff like that. Is there any sort of insights and tips and tricks you can give us for just getting to kind of know the lingo? Because I know I had a hell of a time trying to figure out what was going on for the first race there.
Well, for that series, we have a few different little rules. So we're not allowing tires. So that's one of the big things that I find in a few of my leagues now is no tires. And I think it makes for better racing. It allows guys to not go out and run super fast for 5 laps and then go in and get brand new tires because there's a caution again and do it again. And it just makes for better racing. Guys can be more patient and wait it out a little bit. Sorry
to interrupt there. You got to make sure you don't you unselect your tires.
Right. So every time
as well.
So every time you pit, iRacing by default pit has 4 new tires selected for you every time you go into the pits. So you have to make sure that those are unclicked. If once you pit and you have them unclicked and you pit and you don't get tires and you come back out on the track, it'll automatically default to take 4 tires again. So you were in the race the other night that I think I got a little mad in. And
yeah, you've fucking left about 10 laps to go.
I got Bubba. And anyway, so I accidentally left my tires on, and when I went to pit to fix damage, my car got jacked up. So I was honest and said I got tires, so I left the race, and which is part of the rules that we're supposed to be implementing. So you have to make sure that there's ways to get around it. You can set up a hotkey to click it off every time. You just got to remember. There's black flags for speeding, same as there is real racing. It's just now you have a computer telling you instead of somebody in your receiver telling you in your ear that you've got to come in the pits or see whoever at the start finish line. There's wave rounds. We're limiting that, I think, to one wave around precaution, and whoever's admitting the race will give you a to go around. You have to pass the pace car and come around and catch up with the field. iRacing does a good job of lining you up and telling you where to go as long as you're listening to your spotter and in the in-game spotter, not your real one. But you can have real spotters if you have a guy willing to pay for iRacing and watch you.
Yeah, so how does that work? So he or she just has to have iRacing, and then they can click on the race, and then they just go to like aerial view or TV3 or something, and then watch you.
There's an option if you were friends, if you and I were friends on iRacing, or you had to select it as a spotter. If you had an iRacing account, you can go in and you can select watch, spotter, or race in that league. And the spotter gives you a little bit different options for camera thing, and it gives you one-on-one contact with the driver, and other people can't hear you. Hear that person talking to you. It's just like a second channel on the radio, so he can talk to you like your real spotter would in a late model, tell you if you're clear high or whatever. Best thing to do would be turn off your iRacing spotter, because you have two guys telling you in your ear whether you're clear or not. But yeah, that's where I've never run with a spotter. I've been a spotter for somebody before, but I've never actually had one. I wouldn't mind trying it sometime just to see if it's any better or not.
I think I got a job for my dad now.
There you go.
He just needs his own account.
Oh yeah, well I'll have to pay for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the wave arounds, black flags, in-game thing. What is there anything else that a new person should be aware of if they're coming on board for this KEG Shockwave series?
I would think the biggest thing is be patient. Don't try to run up front right away. And if a guy's faster than you and you keep, for example, I think it's F3 brings up the relative box, which tells you how far in front of you, if somebody is in front of you or behind you.
Yeah.
You keep an eye on that a little bit. And if a guy's, let's say 2 seconds behind you, and then a lap later he's, 2/10 behind you, I think you better move out of the way and just let him go. And then if he's running that fast that early, you're probably going to catch back up to him again, unless he's super, super good. But let him go early, let him wear out his tires, and then you can get past him again before the race is over. Yeah,
it's a great suggestion, actually, because the mirrors are one thing that aren't really realistic for me.
Yeah.
The looking ahead and the side view and stuff, that's all realistic. But you see a car behind you, and like you mentioned, the F3 hit that, and it says the guy's like 0.6 behind you, and in the mirror it looks like he's at Western coming out of turn 4 and you're going into turn 1. It looks like you're so far away, and then all of a sudden you're spinning out because the guy's taking you out because he's actually right behind you.
Yeah, that's one of the things. That's one of the settings in the games that can really play with your head too. If you're running with the real mirrors in the car, it's a little better. They're hard to see out of sometimes, though, depending on your screens or whatever you have. But if you run the virtual mirror, which is the one you probably have on,
how do I change that?
There's a camera set. There's a setting for your mirrors in your options under graphics for the amount of mirrors you have in your car, which ones run. There's also a virtual mirror. The virtual mirrors, I usually use it because of the way your field of view is in the screens. You can never get the real mirror to be in the right spot. So I usually use the virtual mirror, and I can move it where I want it in the car so I can see it kind of where it would be in a real car. That mirror has what's called a field of view for the mirror. So you can adjust how close or far things look to you. So somewhere in the 48 to 58 range is usually the most realistic that I've found so far, that the car looks like it's actually 2/10 behind you or 2 seconds behind you. I found that you have to work with that a little bit, but if you go to 100, it's going to look like they're really far away from you, but they're going to be right on you. And if you go too close in, they're going to look like they're on top of you the whole time. So you play with that a little bit, but somewhere in that 50 range for that field of view for the virtual mirror is probably the best.
Cool. I will be texting you after and getting you to re-explain that for me, because this get taken out just constantly.
This entire thing's just a tutorial for Cody.
Yeah, this is nothing new. Short Track Radio podcast. This is just because I don't want to finish 10th again.
I figured that.
Yes. Also, I think last year you had a chance to run a dirt sprint car on pavement, courtesy of the Rory Price Memorial. What was that like trying to run that?
That was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I didn't have a very good night. I got caught in a wreck early, but that's a lot of fun. That's MD 305 series. They run dirt sprints on asphalt. They use a fixed setup. A couple of guys work with that setup. It is a handful. You have dirt tires on asphalt. There's no grip. But it's a lot of fun once you get a hang of it. You've really got to let the tires warm up. So you do not want to take tires because it'll take a whole race to get them hot enough again so you have grip. We ran that through Western Super Series again through Richard Orr and Evergreen Speedway. That was a really cool event that we ran. They're a lot of fun. I wish I could run them more. The guys that run that MD series, they're fantastic. They're really helpful. They help you. They'll teach you how to drive the cars and make it good. They're a really good bunch. And I was running for Rendell Motorsports there, so I was running the 14, and I had a lot of pressure on me to be that fast, and I didn't do very well. But Aaron got a hold of me and said I did a good job. He was watching on TV down in Everett that weekend, so it was fun.
Nice. Yeah, that was a really cool deal that they had as kind of a prelude to the Rory Price Memorial, which I was down there for, as well as most of the real guys, and we were tuning in there on the Friday night, getting a preview of the action. Was that at Lanier Speedway?
Yeah, it was at Lanier. Yeah, and it was cool. It was and the drivers got to pick who they wanted to represent them in the race. So once I qualified and made it in, Aaron picked me, which I was honored to get picked, but I was sorry to disappoint him.
Do we still have Cody on the line?
I'm here.
There he is. He's just relaxing.
Yeah, just I stopped talking for 10 seconds, which is not normal.
There we go. Now, do they still have the non-wing asphalt sprint cars on there as well?
They do, and I wish that people would run them more. There's a league that runs officials on Tuesday nights, which is the same as my Western Super Series, so I don't get to run them. They only run officials, but it's the one car that nobody seems to ever want to run in iRacing. They're not very popular. They're absolutely a blast to drive. They take a lot to learn how to drive them in iRacing, but I love them. I just wish there was people that would race them too, because you can never find anybody to race them.
Are they more like a USAC car?
What's that?
Are they more like a USAC car?
No, they're
Silver Crown.
No, they're almost the same as our non-wing sprints. They're basically the same.
They're 410s without wings. It's what USAC used to have a pavement division for their national sprint car series, which were 410s, and they used to run them on pavement at half miles. Like I don't know if Cody, you've seen Winchester Speedway in Indiana?
No.
It has it's a half mile with 33 degrees of banking.
Oh, sounds perfect.
Yeah, so they I think they average like 140 miles an hour.
Yeah,
Jesus.
So yeah, I think we should have short track radio Thursday night Thunder.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll have a non-wing sprint car invitational.
I think that'd be fun.
I'd love to set something up. I think this is it's gonna be great. The next few months here we're gonna be potentially locked away. It's gonna be a good way to kind of keep some attention on local racers and try to get some sponsors going and I'd love to get like a Facebook Live or something where people can tune in. So pick your brain over the next little bit here, Jason. Try to see if we can do something. Some sort of series.
On that We're actually working on that right now.
Perfect.
No, it's good. Steve Beckford's really jumped up a lot on that, and then David Smith, his promotional guys are kind of working on that a little bit too. And then we're going to try to get Cole maybe once in a while if he can get time to maybe come and help commentate some races, which would be great.
Yes. I'll be the guy with the iRacing membership that's just watching.
That's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
I'll
you
be
can
the
spot
guest
for me.
There we go. We'll do the short track. We'll record the short track radio spotter driver combo.
Be great. Some interesting conversations there.
Yes.
It's just as heated on the radio. It's hilarious. I love it.
I actually think it's worse in iRacing than it is in real, because you don't have actual direct contact with most drivers when you race in real life. So you usually wait till after the race. You've kind of thought about it a little bit and you said, maybe I shouldn't say that, but you've said it in the car, but nobody heard you. But in iRacing, you seem to say it right away, like I did the other night. And yeah, which I normally don't do. I'm usually pretty calm that way, but I was getting frustrated. But I apologize for that. So.
I think there should be from now on iRacing for sure, but in real racing, all the Smith camp, they have like Chops and those boys, Rory and everyone else. That it has to be broadcast from the top, the tower there, Cole. So you get you can talk every so often, but whatever the Smith boys are saying in the car, it gets broadcast because it was fucking hilarious.
We'll do a radioactive segment like NASCAR has.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Check. We got to make sure somehow we can clean it up a little bit if we broadcast it. But yeah, it was definitely interesting.
That'd be a lot.
So, any sponsors else, real or sim that you mentioned? I think Don Mann and Steve Lingren, DG Automotive.
Yeah, Don Mann and Don Mann. I've been working with them for a couple months now. They decided to sponsor the real car this year, so to help them out, I put them on the virtual car. Steve Lingren was with me last year, and he's again with me again this year, which is awesome. He's a good friend of mine and a good supporter. DG Auto Care has been with me since I started racing. They're not with me this year, but they are sponsoring the Island Outlaw 4 Series again if we do race. But they've been good sponsor and good supporter of me over the few years. And then Paradigm Auto Works, who is not an actual sponsor, but I've been helping them out a little bit, and they're helping me out, and hopefully I can get my race car down and put on their dyno eventually, so we can try out some stuff with our rear end ratios and see where we're hitting on our limiter, since we're not allowed to really modify anything in our car. So we can't change our computers or do anything like that. So changing rear end gears is basically the only way we can change our RPMs and where we're at for our gear ratios. And it's hard to do that at the track unless you can run a perfect lap every time. So putting on the dyno gives us a good chance. So I'm hoping that putting them on the race car a little bit will help me get in there and get a little deal. So been talking to those guys lots. And a couple of years ago, VRX Simulators had a simulator set up at Perks Arena for the fire department, and they had a fastest lap challenge, and the owner of Paradigm and I were battling it out all weekend for the fastest lap. So in the end, myself, Jared Heap, and the Paradigm guy ended up 1, 2, and 3. So on the weekend, so it was a lot of fun. So we got to know some guys there.
Awesome. Well, I think I can't open up the last part of the segment here, which is always the 5 questions, the rapid fire questions. But from memory, I think we go, what's the deal with your number 51 car?
I think I know where it comes from.
Cole knows the answer to this, and Cole knows that the guy in the movie was named Cole also. And,
my namesake.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the 51 car and the green and black paint job is from Days of Thunder, which is probably my favorite movie of all time, and I watch it every year before the season starts and all that good stuff. And it's still a pretty cheesy movie, but I love it, and it was great for NASCAR at the time. It was right before Jeff Gordon started. It was funny that they wrote that movie and the way it went, and it was almost like a Jeff Gordon, and then Jeff Gordon came on the scene and kind of fulfilled that shoe of the Cole Trickle thing, and it was a whole kind of a neat little story, and it's been around a long time, and I hope they make a new version of it. I hope that maybe Cole Trickle's retiring and somebody else is taking over. I don't know how that's going to work, but
you're writing a script for it. You got to get
it off. I wrote this script 100 times, but yeah, no, that's what the car is based on, which is something fun that people my age would recognize and kind of see. But it's funny at the racetrack, not a lot of people know what it is unless the young kids have no idea. And so this year maybe we'll change it up. But right now it's still all black, and if I can afford that really nice white wrap with the Don Mann all over it, maybe we'll do that. But have to see how the season plays out.
Nice. And then any car that you want to run or race, either iRacing or an actual race car?
My bucket list is a late model. I've been a late model fan my whole life growing up and watching it. If I could get a chance to run a late model, that would be the one thing for me that would probably kick it off. Don't even know. I think I'd have to ever race again if I could run a real one sometime. But I'm happy with the Outlaws. I just wish our class was a little bigger. It's really clean racing. But yeah, late models for me is where I'd like to be, and that's where I like being in the sim too. I like the short tracks. The NASCAR tracks are fun, but they can get pretty boring when the field gets spread out. So I like racing side by side and being on the throttle and then on the brake, and being on the throttle then on the brake, and I like that. I like finding a groove and working the track as the race goes on. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice. And your favorite track for a party or after party?
Favorite track?
Favorite racetrack for after party? You just raced at Western. Have you gone anywhere else for road trips? I know you've gone down to, you mentioned before NASCAR tracks and stuff like that.
I would love to go back to Nova Scotia to go to Riverside Speedway, which is the Bristol of Canada. That race is fantastic every year, and they usually bring a lot of late model drive. I think the Pinty Series races there. And the Pinty Series races there, and then the Pro Star Tour late model tour races there, and they all got good guys from the eastern part of the U.S. all come up to that track, and it's fantastic.
Hey, Cole, do you remember the other two? I can't. I'm been hitting the head too many times. I can't remember.
That's all that I can really remember from that. I can add some Days of Thunder fun fact to add to the script. That was actually the Cole Trickle is based off of Tim Richmond, and Harry Hogg, the crew chief, is based off of real NASCAR crew chief Harry Hyde.
That's cool.
You guys, you got to get together and write a script here for some new. We get Neil Montgomery building some motors. We get who could we put in the script here from Western?
I think Caden Smith would be a colorful character if we get his young up and comer.
For sure.
Yes. So we got him. We got Neil building the motors. I think if we get Bart up there in Up Island doing the whole car in the barn scene.
Yeah, get modified in there. He's got like 6 car built. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Got him out to pasture.
One final question I had is, how the hell do you say the name of the town or village that you're from in Nova Scotia?
It's Middle Musquodoboit.
Yeah, exactly. I read it on there. I was like, what?
Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever met anybody that could pronounce it that wasn't from there. But yeah, that's where I grew up.
Some interesting names out in the Newfoundland, or out in the Maritimes. My favorite is Happy Valley Goose Bay in Newfoundland.
Mm-hmm. I've been there, and it's a nice place. But yeah, that's an interesting name.
So we got episode 19. So this is the first time we try to correlate. Mike Haslam wants to be episode 22, obviously 22 car. And just by chance, I saw your birthday is on April 19th. So we got you for episode 19. So this is the first time we try to piece it together here. But thanks for taking the time out of your iRacing schedule and joining us here.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. I try to watch you guys or listen to you guys every week.
Appreciate it. We're trying to get more content out there, but I said like before, I've been hitting the head too many times, and I'm in charge of the audio and the video, and it's sometimes not working out. So we're making some progress, and just keep checking back and watching, listening to Short Track Radio.
I will.
Yeah,
sure.
Thanks, Cody, and thanks, Jason, for coming on.
Thank you, Cole.
Brought to you by Smartwash.
Yes, Smartwatch. Yes.
Cole, insert professional.
Insert professional. If you need your vehicle washed in quick and timely fashion, and you want that service to come to you, visit Smartwash with Cody Brown for a wonderful clean finish on your automobile.
See, perfect.
There you go. Good with that.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. This has been another edition of Short Track Radio, and we're going to tune out of our Zoom chat. Stay tuned for when we feel like posting again.